Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. And after the Brexit EU summit a couple of days ago, there's been another hardening of the stance from the EU. Of course, certain events have overtaken this because there's been cliff edge threats made by Boris Johnson as well, which I had to talk about yesterday. And some more belly aching about fishing from Johnson's representative, David Frost. And it is the fishing issue and the emergence of some sort of position on both sides last week that I want to talk about. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, first thing to point out, I suppose, would be some people say, well, look, Boris Johnson, Phil, yesterday, in case you didn't notice, I did notice, said that, well, you know, we're not getting the deal we want, so that's that then. But you'll also notice he refused to walk away from the talks. He's refused to say that there isn't going to be a deal. So at the end of the day, he still wants a deal. I don't think we're going to get one at this point, don't get me wrong. The probability is well in favour of not getting one, probably because of positions being completely impossible. And I think the fishing one potentially explains it, because the EU's position was very hard. It was surprisingly terse from them. Obviously, I know that there are things that they can't be flexible on. That's understood. It's been understood for years. But the language was especially hard. And maybe the fishing can sort of explain it, because a clearer position has emerged, I think, from France. Now, the first thing as part of the fishing one is David Frost, who is the UK's chief negotiator, I have to say, displayed a little bit of cheek in moaning this week about the lack of progress on fishing. I did have to remind him on Twitter about his own lack of effort in that area. Back in February, you know, we left the EU the end of January. Then the talks were supposed to get underway after that. So, you know, in February, ahead of this, the EU presented their proposals for a comprehensive agreement. It was all there. It was all fully in line with the withdrawal agreement. It was fully within the framework that had been agreed with Boris Johnson and that he had sold as his Brexit, his oven-ready deal. We were supposed to have done the same, because that's how negotiations work. So one side has their proposals. The other side looks at them and says, well, you know, here are our proposals. And then you get the two proposals and you go, well, let's go through what are the common areas. What do we both want? Tick those off. Oh, that's a lot. Oh, good. We're making a good start. Now let's look at the areas where we don't agree and see if there's any sort of movement we can have to a position where neither side fully gets what they want, but both sides gets what they will accept. That's how it would work. But we didn't. We didn't provide a comprehensive proposal at all at any point. We tried to provide piecemeal things. It's like, well, here's the bit of our proposal, right? Where is the rest of it? Oh, that'll be coming, will it? You've had years to think about this. When will it be coming? Oh, it'll be coming. All right, then. What we're going to talk about in the meantime, then? Should we talk about our proposal? No, we don't like your proposal. Okay, should we talk about your proposal? We don't have one. Should we have another cup of coffee? And for fishing particularly, I mean, fishing was one of the areas where the UK, did not provide any proposals for 7 months. 7 months after the EU's proposals, the UK finally came up with something. And, you know, it was well received. It's like, oh, you know, this is showing a bit of flexibility here. That we like that. That's fine. It's not quite right, but that's okay. That's your starting position. The problem is that the starting position should have been back in February, and it wasn't. So, yeah, it's a bit cheeky of Frost to discuss fishing for 7 months as being, yeah, we'll come up with our proposals when we can be bothered, and then have the gall to complain that not enough progress has been made on fishing. The issue that he sees as being the main barrier to a trade deal, he said that fishing is the most important issue now to deal with. The issue you refuse to talk about for 7 months. That one, is that the really important issue? So anyway, so it may appear that we're not holding any more talks on that at any point. At the moment, the EU has entrenched its position. The UK has entrenched its position. Yeah, it looks like a no deal. But it may well be that both sides think that the other side will just fold. I have to say, I have a morbid fascination. I've said this before, I shall say it again. If what we have here is a situation where Boris Johnson is just utterly convinced that the EU will fold, and he's just waiting for whatever date is in his head, and I do not know what date is in his head. It could be the end of October, because we've all been told it takes about 2 months to ratify anything, so to get an agreement in place for the end of the transition period, end of October. However, he may decide that he doesn't need the deal in place for the end of the transition period, that we can manage for a couple of weeks without it. Oh, I really don't think we can, but let's say. He may pick as the date in his head the 15th of November because that is the next EU summit. Maybe he thinks that is when they will fold. I don't know. But what I do know is if he genuinely believes they are going to fold, there's going to come a point where even he has to realise that maybe this is not going to happen after all. And I want to see what he's going to do. But it is a morbid fascination because what he's going to do is going to be to the detriment of millions of people in my country. But anyway, on the issue of fishing, there has been a bit of clarity from France as well, which doesn't look good. And this may explain why the positions have now hardened. It may just be that a trade deal is actually impossible. At the moment, inevitably there has to be one in the future, but at the moment, politically impossible. Because, I mean, we do always have to have in the back of our head that politics often makes agreements look impossible until all of a sudden you come out with one. Because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Political statements are there for public consumption. Essentially, France's original position was, well, we need to maintain the current system of quotas on fishing that have already been set, people have paid money for. That needs to be honoured. So that was the EU's position. Now, that was obviously not going to wash in the UK. The the Brexiteers have painted themselves into a corner on fishing. All right, said France, we get that, we understand that. But we can't screw our fishermen over either. In fact, doing so has been described as politically toxic in France. More on that in a bit. So France's proposal is to let French fishermen keep their quotas on British cod, say, because they land quite a lot of that. It's not feasible to do so for France anyway, to sort of change that. And if that can't be arranged, then a deal looks impossible. But the French have said to be flexible, tell you what, for the other waters, we're happy to remove French fishermen from the equation. As long as those French fishermen can fish in EU waters that are currently being fished by British fishermen. So it's like, okay, you kick French fishermen out of these parts of your waters and they will just replace the British fishermen that we will have to kick out from ours. We were happy them being there, but you know, you don't want that. And the waters include the Celtic Sea, the Irish Sea, and the waters around Scotland. Now, the question is this red line a serious proposal from France? Or is it politics to where there is further room for manoeuvre? Because if you look at this proposal, it looks absolutely impossible to accept for the bulk of Brexiteers for two major reasons. First of all, it essentially says that EU fishermen will scale operations back from the waters not around England. And the reason being, the reason that was given is, well, if you look at those areas, they're sort of places that don't seem all that keen on being part of the UK anyway. So, you know, a bit of a dig there, bit of a dig. Secondly, it's also saying that fishing rights around English waters will have to remain unchanged. But England is where most of our Brexit racists are, and the vast majority of the ones who are banging on about fishing. In other words, the way I would characterise it, if France actually wanted to conclude the Brexit negotiations without a deal, which I don't believe they do, but if they did, this is exactly how you would do it. Not that I'm saying that this is the plan, like I said, it's just the proposal I cannot see how it could be sold to Brexiteers back here. It may well be that President Macron genuinely cannot give any more ground on fishing. That may just be it. That politically, that may be it. And as I say, that might explain the harder line from the EU, because if Macron is insisting, look, I cannot move any further than that. Cannot. Then, and if the only, I mean, I don't know, maybe if Boris Johnson offered more compensation, like fair compensation, maybe then, I don't know. But that's not what's being offered. But so as things stand, Macron said, look, that's as far as I can move, unless the UK can come up with something better. Which is why the EU has said, well, Johnson, ball's in your court now, can you come up with something better? But it could also be argued that fundamentally the EU know that Johnson won't be able to come up to. So rather than just messing about, they're just going, look, do you know what? We've stated what our demands are. Either accept them or don't, because, you know, we've got to deal with COVID here. So, yeah, the situation, if that is the case, makes a deal impossible. France has made it clear that it wants a deal, but not at any price. They have prepared for a no-deal scenario for some years. The UK has made it clear that we want a deal, but not at any price. So there's no difference in rhetoric there. So does that mean, well, both sides will just go, well, we'll sit here then and we'll not get a deal? But I would say that behind the scenes is a little bit different in the UK. There's a lot of difference, in fact, because the UK would be losing unfettered access to our most important market. It cannot be stated enough. Without a deal, the EU loses one trade deal. One. We are losing almost all of them. That's a much more serious prospect for us than it is the EU. We also have not been working on no deal preparations until very recently, very seriously at all. Even the border preparations that would have been needed even if we got a free trade agreement, even they're not ready. They should have been being prepared years ago. They weren't. The government kept talking about how much money it spent on no deal preparations. But where is it? It's a bit like the 12 billion quid for test and trace, and we can account for about £700,000 of it. Where's the rest of it? It's the same with our no deal planning. Where has the money been spent? All I can see at the moment is a load of sand where there's about to be a Brexit lorry park in Kent. Which, by the way, there's a petition to see if we can get it named after Nigel Farage. I might have to talk about that separately. That's not for now anyway. That's nothing to do with fishing. So, you know, there we go. The no deal outcome for France, not ideal. Some businesses will suffer, some will gain. It's not ideal. But as long as Macron doesn't take any political flack for it, as long as he says, well, I stood up for French interests, you wouldn't have wanted me to back down on French interests, would you? Then politically he can do that. Boris Johnson, different matter. Boris Johnson promised that he already had a deal. The Brexit oven-ready deal. It was already there. It was worked out last year. Don't even know what this year's negotiations were about because we already have a deal, don't we? So Boris Johnson will take political heat over this. You know, his one saving grace, I would say, on if fishing really was the major sticking point at the end of all things, because the state aid isn't. The state aid's a nonsense. The saving grace is this. The only Brexiteers who matter right now are his own MPs. Not the Brexit Party crowd, not Nigel Farage and all that lot. The only ones that matter are his own MPs. And they aren't asked about fishing at all. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Obviously, this is going to run and run now for the next few days and for the next few weeks. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.